Hey, great to see everybody. Welcome back. Hopefully we're having a wonderful end of the week here, and hopefully we had a great holiday as well. But things are getting very active here in the world of weather with big time lake effect snow ongoing. In fact, we're going to be counting totals in feet instead of inches. And that's going to kind of lead to what continues to be a cold and snowy pattern. Now, some of the latest model guidance makes things a little bit more interesting here in kind of that 7 to 10 day time frame through portions of the eastern United States. It looks like some energy may dive a little bit further south and increase the chances of getting some snowfall outside of the lake effect areas and outside of the interior Northeast. So can folks along the I-95 corridor, can folks in the Mid-Atlantic get in on the fun? We'll talk about it and I'll give you the latest. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorology major at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. And if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. And also hit that bell for the latest notifications. That makes sure you'll be the first to hear about these videos and you'll be the first to see the latest models right after I'm done posting them and an analysis on those models. Also, go ahead, like the video and comment. Let me know where you're watching from and let me know if you're seeing some of that snow out there and how much has fallen over the past little bit. Alrighty, folks, with that said, let's go ahead and dive into things and start talking weather. Now, starting with satellite loop, it's a pretty mesmerizing look this morning. You'll see this big time swirl up into portions of the Hudson Bay. This is what's bringing all of that lake effect snow, all of the wind coming around kind of the bottom side of the slope, crossing those lakes, and really, taking advantage of that instability and producing a lot of snowfall. Now, that is also happening because of what is behind our other storm. This was our Thanksgiving Day storm, now is pulled up into Canada. This is that long cold front associated with it, now dripping all the way back down into the Gulf Coast, and everything behind it is very cold, below average normal, or below average compared to normal in the temperature department. So it's starting to feel a lot more like winter compared to fall for a lot of folks this morning, and you can see all this on radar as well. We'll zoom into the Northeast and kind of eastern Canada here. Notice all of this lake effect beginning to really pick up and ramp up here. We also have some heavy snow here into eastern Canada and even down into portions of Maine. By the way, if you're watching in this area, let me know how much snow you fall from that storm yesterday, but it's still snowing good up into portions of New Brunswick, especially kind of the further into interior New Brunswick you get seeing some of that snow. And then obviously the lake effect is the big story. Big time bands of lake effect snow up into the Tug Hill just south of Watertown. A lot of snow falling here south of Buffalo, kind of north of Cleveland into Erie, and up towards the Dunkirk area of portions of New York State there. And then also seeing some pretty impressive snow here into portions of Canada, not far from Toronto here along these shorelines that border Lake Superior and Lake Huron specifically as well. But a lot of snow, a lot of lake effect falling today. That's going to be the theme, and it's going to last for a while, even up here into the UP of Michigan and into the Mitten itself, seeing plenty of snow falling. And it's going to be a theme, folks. It's going to be a very snowy period. Also have a couple storms left here along the Gulf Coast where our cold front is still draping downward. Also had a couple strong storms yesterday in the southeast. Luckily, I did not see any reports of any tornadoes, but definitely had some strong winds. Now, the good news, you folks out west finally in a quiet period, and it'll probably stay like that for a while. And we'll talk about why that is here later on in the video. Now, watches, warnings, advisories, yeah, we've got a pretty active map here. We'll start where all of that snow is falling. The pink boxes here are winter storm warnings. The purple boxes, winter weather advisories, and kind of these, I guess, maybe turquoise blue or bluish green color. Those are lake effect snow warnings. So plenty of winter alerts on the map here for you. And this is going to be felt again for a while. This is not going to be a one-day event. This is going to be a today event, a tomorrow event, and well into this coming week. And that's why we have all these watches, warnings, and advisories. And these are going to last, again, going to kind of hang around here for a while, not just a small time event now. Outside of there, you'll notice in the south we have this band of kind of blue showing up. These are freeze warnings for very cold morning temperatures where we're still in planting season into the deep south. And obviously that will disrupt some of those plants. So if you need to, bring them in or cover them up, whatever precautions you normally take for that cold weather. And this is really just the start of that cold pattern. Now, we will moderate at times, but it's going to stay below average for a while. So go ahead and get used to whatever precaution that is. In fact, if you kind of have an end to your planting season, now is probably the time to do it if you haven't already. All right, today's Meteorology in Minutes segment, going to do it a little bit different today. We're going to break down the science behind lake effect snow in kind of a short period of time. It is called Meteorology in Minutes after all, not Meteorology in 30 minutes. So taking a look at lake sea surface temperatures. These are all the Great Lakes right now, and these are the temperatures at the surface of the lakes. And I'll talk about why that's important in just a second. But what I want you to notice is if you're looking at, now for the science purposes, I would look at it in Celsius. So we're running probably about 10, 15 degrees Celsius through many of these lakes. A couple areas a little bit colder, a couple areas maybe a tad bit warmer than that, but you get the idea. Many of these lakes are well above average in the temperature department for late November and early December, and that's going to really help up these snow totals. And here's why. Kind of some of the science behind lake effect. The reason it even happens is the difference between the kind of, I guess we'll call it sea surface temperature or lake surface temperature compared to the temperature above our heads. Now, normally the way we do this is we look at the temperature at 850 millibars. So that's right here on your skew T-log P map, which is, well, if I can pick the color that you can see, that would help. Right here. And right now, this is sounding for Lake Erie, not far from Erie itself. Temperatures at 850 millibars are, we'll say, about -9, -10 degrees Celsius. If we go back to the other map, the kind of surface of the lake is running about 10, 12, even up to 15 degrees Celsius in spots. Now, to get enough instability to produce lake effect, you normally need about a 13 degrees Celsius difference between the surface of the lake and 850 millibars. Well, folks, this is about a 20 degree difference, even 25 degree difference in spots. So it's a very unstable setup right now that we're running into. Another thing that makes this very favorable is our wind profile. These winds are not shifting a lot. These are very unidirectional kind of winds, just meaning that they're very all running the same way. And we also have a very saturated layer in our sounding from the surface up well past 700 millibars. So you put all this together and it's a perfect recipe for big time lake effect snow. And that's exactly what we're going to see out of this. And normally, this is the setup that brings it. Big time low pressure up into the Hudson Bay that becomes occluded, all of that cold air and that wind coming over the lakes, and that's what creates all of the snow. Now, another thing we'll need to watch for over the near term are little ripples of vorticity. We could see a couple little Alberta clippers swing on through, and this could bring snow to areas kind of far south. I'm talking Missouri, Kentucky, even down into Tennessee and the mountains of Virginia and North Carolina and West Virginia could see some snow out of this over the next little bit. So if we move our map ahead into time, you'll notice here's one little kind of piece of energy that swings on through. This is tomorrow afternoon, likely bringing snow through portions of Missouri, and then watch that little piece of energy kind of swing on through Kentucky and into portions of Tennessee and then into the southern Alps. And that's going to be a theme. We're going to see a couple of these little clippers swing on through, and it's into next week that these clippers get a little bit stronger, dive a little bit further south, and that's when we'll be watching portions of the I-95 corridor and the Mid-Atlantic to maybe try to get in on some of the fun. Now, these are tough things to forecast, but we'll talk about it, and I'll give you the latest on it here in just a moment. But first off, let's talk about the near term and all of this lake effect snow that's on the way. Now, I don't need to really slow down this process because I'm going to move the map ahead, and it's not going to change a whole lot for you here. So this is this afternoon, snow through the UP of Michigan, snow into the northern mitten of Michigan. Really, the entire state that normally sees lake effect snow is getting it. And I'll move this through this afternoon and evening. Not a whole lot is changing. Very heavy bands of lake effect snow. This is going to add up quickly. Again, going to count it in feet, not inches in this part of the country. Now, a little bit of a lull maybe. This is overnight tonight through the western shore of Michigan, but still lake effect around. And then by the time we get into tomorrow afternoon, I think, a little bit calmer than today through the western half of the state, but you get into the UP specifically up here into the eastern portion of the UP. Heavy snow will continue to fall through the day tomorrow on your Saturday. In fact, maybe even picking up a little bit. Notice that big kind of burst of snow there going into your overnight Saturday into Sunday. Now, another thing you'll notice that's happening to the south here is here's our little clipper system, kind of a couple of them. We've got some snow up into the Dakotas, but here's that further south clipper system. This is tomorrow morning about 7 a.m. You'll notice that snow picking up. Kind of into the heart of Missouri, some snowflakes possible into the St. Louis area for your Saturday, crossing into southern Illinois, southern Indiana, and then getting down eventually into Kentucky and Tennessee. And we'll talk about that piece a little bit more in a second, but notice how that is beginning to show up on your map there. Northeast, plenty of snow here as well, especially into the Tug Hill and just south of Buffalo, kind of between Buffalo and Cleveland going to get the worst of it. Probably 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 feet of snow in spots. We'll move this ahead into time this afternoon. Two bands of snow that we're really going to be looking at. It's this one right here, and then this one up into the Tug Hill. These are going to be the two main producers, but another thing I want you to notice, by the afternoon, some of these kind of snow squalls are breaking containment. We're getting squalls into the mountains of West Virginia, squalls through southern Ohio, and all of this is going to slowly rotate through. Again, this is a very potent system, so some of these snow squalls could make it into Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, again, northern New Jersey, Pennsylvania, outside of the Erie area, seeing some of these squalls through this evening. So do not be caught off guard if you're Black Friday shopping today to see a couple snowflakes begin to fly in places outside of kind of the lakeshore areas, but obviously the worst of it, again, where you would expect it there along the shorelines. Now, overnight tonight, more of the same. We continue this very heavy lake effect snow banding, and then we get into tomorrow afternoon. Notice, again, a little bit more of some squall action. This is caused by some convection, meaning the sun is probably shining. That's heating up the ground, but still very unstable compared to what's above it with that cold air. Same thing we talked about with the lakes happens at the surface, and you begin to see some of these little snow squalls and snow showers popping up here. Places like New York City, northern New Jersey, again, do not be surprised. Maybe a couple snowflakes falling for your Saturday afternoon through Long Island, and that gets us all the way into overnight Saturday into Sunday, and you'll notice more of the same on the way. All right, so I wanted to talk about the southeast a little bit here too, because we do have this clipper system working on through. Now this afternoon, like I mentioned, we do have some showers here along the Gulf Coast to kind of monitor, but it's really that clipper system I'm watching tomorrow. This is the latest NAM model. Tomorrow morning, about 7 a.m. Eastern, or 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central Time, here's our clipper beginning to develop a good shield of snow up into Missouri, even into portions of Kansas City on this model run. Then it dives southward, getting that snow into southern Illinois, into Kentucky, and by tomorrow afternoon and evening, we've got snow showers through central Kentucky, down into maybe north central portions of Tennessee there, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, seeing some of those flakes fly, and all of that continues into the overnight and eventually getting into eastern Kentucky. This is about 10 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, getting into the overnight hours, seeing some snow falling into Pikeville and much of eastern Kentucky there, into the bluegrass, and then even some of that snow getting into southwestern Virginia, northern North Carolina, the Boone area, seeing some snowflakes fly, and then into southern West Virginia. And unfortunately, the mountains kind of eat up whatever moisture's left, and not much of it gets over the chain. Maybe a couple flurries into central Virginia, north central North Carolina can't be ruled out, but nothing worth writing home about, as they say. All right, let's talk about snowfall totals here. This is over the next 72 hours. We'll start in the Great Lakes, and this is the blend of models. I'll tell you, though, this is probably even underdone a little bit in spots. For example, over here in the Tug Hill, you'll see this is calling for about 30, 40 inches of snow. Probably try closer to 60 inches in all honesty. But you get to the point where the difference between 40 inches of snow and 60 inches of snow isn't that much in terms of the impacts. You're going to feel it either way. So I think this map's just going to be the prettiest to show you. But a lot of snow, obviously the trouble spots that we're used to into the UP, up here into the northern mitten, but really up and down the West Coast. And again, your key on the right-hand side of your screen there, you can see how much snow this model, or this blend of models rather, is projecting. The place is going to be hit the hardest, though, just south of Buffalo through the Erie area. That's where we could see 2 to 3, even 4 feet of snowfall. Up here into the Tug Hill Plateau, that's where it could be 4 to 5, maybe even 6 inches, or feet of snowfall, rather. Again, not inches. And then also, places up here to Canada. If you're watching in here, plenty of snow for you as well. Going to be counting it in feet, just like everyone here into the United States. And it's going to take, again, a while to dig out of this. In fact, probably not going to really dig out of this until springtime and it all melts as we get into the heart of winter. Another thing I'll add here, if you're watching in the east and you're thinking, well, I would like some snow. When am I going to get some snow? Well, this doesn't hurt us. This actually helps to build up snowpack. So what this does is this cools the ground, and later on towards January, when we get more of these cold high pressures to swing on through, they will be colder because of this and could help us out further south. Now, another place to talk about here is from that Clipper system. I think the blended model is doing a pretty good job here mapping out where it's going to happen here into kind of sections of the St. Louis area, southern Illinois, southern Indiana through Kentucky, southern Ohio, and then into the mountains of West Virginia, where you're going to get some lake effect or northwest flow, as you probably call it there, as well as this clipper. Now, you'll notice a couple areas, or I guess I should say, rather, this isn't getting all the way down south into Nashville and into Tennessee. We could get a little bit of a surprise here. Now, these things wiggle a little bit in their track, and they're kind of hard to forecast. They're such small little pieces of energy, but you get the idea. The places that do see the snow here, probably 1 to 3 inches, going to be a safe bet, maybe a dusting to an inch in other places. And that will be kind of the theme here. Now, outside of there in the Northeast, I will also mention you're seeing some of this little snow showing up through Massachusetts, back down into New Jersey, Pennsylvania. This could be from some of those snow squalls that could dump a quick dusting, maybe even an inch of snow on the ground. Again, these are going to be convective in nature, meaning whenever it is snowing, it's going to be snowing hard and heavy. So do not be surprised about that. And then this little area you're seeing in North Carolina, Virginia, I would just box that out. Again, maybe some flurries later this weekend, but that'll probably be the extent of it for you folks. All right, so what's going on down the pipeline? Again, folks along the I-95 corridor in the Mid-Atlantic and areas even into the Southeast are saying, when is my snow? You've been talking about this cold pattern. Can I get some snow? Well, it's not out of the question by any means, and I think the models have gotten better for that chance over the past day or so. So let's kind of take a look at the pattern here. Now, we've got a big ridge flexing out west. This is why things have calmed down out west. We had big atmospheric river a week or two ago. Now, calmer weather as this ridge is flexing its muscles. And I always say this, what goes up must come down. So while that goes up, it's kind of dropping the hammer in the east, and we're seeing wave after wave of these lower height values and cooler temperatures. And this is going to, again, last a while. This is what we're seeing right now this weekend. One big shot of blue. I think we moderate a little bit. This is important to note. Probably this coming Tuesday, Wednesday, getting a little bit closer to average. Then another area of some lower heights moves through, and it's this area, and then even another area behind it. You'll notice here, I mean, this is crazy cold heights, folks. This is very frigid Arctic air, kind of to end the first week of December. It's these second two areas, though, that we need to watch for potential winter weather outside of the Great Lakes and outside of the interior Northeast. And that hangs around a while. And then you notice the train does not end. It is more and more well into December here. So we're going to have multiple shots of winter weather. And I'm liking what I'm seeing in the models. And here's why. Something we've been lacking recently is kind of the southern stream or the subtropical jet stream. Everything's kind of been locked up north a little bit. That's why we've seen the snow in the Great Lakes. That's why we've seen it into the mountains of New England and into the Northeast. Is we're not seeing an interaction of both jets. And for that to happen, you need these areas of cold to dive a little bit further south and quicker and begin to tilt negatively as they do so. And that's what some of the models are hinting at happening. So here's our next big piece of energy. This is coming in the middle of next week, next Wednesday. Next shot of cold air and next piece of energy associated with it. Notice it's entering into the plains instead of the Northeast. That's important. That's going to give it more time to dig further south and begin to tilt more negatively as it does so. And the GFS from this morning does exactly that, moves it south, tilts it, and notice it begins to interact just a little bit with the subtropical jet. Here's our subtropical jet. Here's that big polar piece of energy. They get very close to one another and begin to interact. That's the first piece of energy. Move it ahead and check out what happens. Another big piece of energy diving south, getting quite far south. And another thing to note, this is about 10 days from now, so take this with a grain of salt. But some of the models have been hinting at this big piece of energy back out into the kind of desert southwest getting kicked east. And should that happen, like the GFS shows here, that would bring a much higher chance of getting a big storm system. That would really be the core of the subtropical jet and the core of the polar jet interacting. And that could lead to very exciting weather for many folks. Now, what about the European? Is it showing something similar? Well, this is early next week, so here's one little piece of energy, but here's the one I was just talking about. This is that next big shot of cold air, that next big piece of fuel for maybe some cyclogenesis to happen. That, again, moving south, becoming negative quicker. And see what I mean by that? See how it starts here, and then it kind of begins to curve upwards like that? That's what I mean by starting positively tilted and then slowly tilting backwards into a negative orientation. That's what we want. And then another little piece of energy does it later on in about 10 days. And the European also, I'll back it up a little bit, watch that big piece of energy into Mexico and into the desert southwest, also gets kicked east and begins to interact with our polar jet. And that's when we can see some sort of shenanigans, probably a bigger deal kind of shenanigans. And the timing on that would probably be about 10 days from now. Maybe we'll say 8 to 12 days, kind of a 4-day time frame there. So you're thinking, well, that's far out. And yes, it is. And we'll watch it. But it is something worth watching, I think. But even those first couple pieces of energy, take a look. This is the GFS model. Notice all this lake effect continuing. This is into Sunday. This is into early next week. It does not stop. Here comes that next clipper, though, that next piece of energy, and a pretty feisty looking one at that. Not kind of like the one we're seeing this weekend, which is very weak. This is a much more pronounced clipper system. Move southward, and notice, again, like I said, this is kind of picking up some southern energy here, and it kind of has an entire front here that is working in tandem. And that swings on through. That brings our next shot of cold air, brings a lot of snow, even down into the Smokies, up into the Northeast. And you'll notice on the GFS, this is bringing some snow up into New Jersey, kind of down into even Delaware and into the Delmarva. And this is, less than a week from now. This is about 6 days. Now, this is a bit of an Anna front in a way, so this probably wouldn't bring snow to the Carolinas or into the Southeast. Now, could it maybe outside of the mountains, on the western side of the mountains, I should say? It's possible, but this isn't really a Charlotte, Columbia, Atlanta kind of storm, but it could bring some snow into the interior Northeast and the I-95 corridor. Now, again, don't take it verbatim yet and say it's going to snow next week, but it's something we'll watch. That swings on through on the GFS, and then another big piece of energy, another big clipper moves through about 7 to 10 days from now, and this one kind of develops a little bit of a coastal low, and we get almost a nor'easter out of that, and very cold air, Arctic air behind it, and then that supplies what would be the next storm system getting going, and you'll notice that one obviously bringing some southern snow and a huge nor'easter well down the pipeline. So maybe don't read so much into the specifics here, but note that the pattern remains active, it remains snowy, it remains something that could produce something big. The European, same story. Here's that first piece of energy diving southward, bringing snow, again, even potentially into the I-95 corridor. Now, not so much on the European compared to the GFS, but this is, again, folks, this is next Thursday. This is not far from now. We've got mixed precipitation, kind of some flurries even into the Carolinas, up into the mid-Atlantic, as this kind of interacts with more southern energy, as we mentioned. That swings on through, and then big time high pressure. And notice something important here. We've got very cold air here, and we've got some rain falling down to the south. That just tells me, in general, that the southern jet stream is becoming a little bit more active. Now, that does not mean this is going to form a big storm, but it does mean it looks better than it did a day or two ago when this almost looked kind of dead. And then after that, the European, much like the GFS, wants to get that big piece of energy from the west out to the east and kind of form a big storm a little bit past 10 days from now. So it's something to monitor. We've got a lot of energy flying around. The cold air is not going to be a problem. It's going to be locked in for a while. So if we take a look at the ensembles and say, all right, well, is it going to snow? Let's move this ahead in a time. Obviously, lake effect is basically guaranteed at this point. Obviously, it is guaranteed. We're seeing it. But elsewhere, what is the chance we see at least an inch of snow within a 24-hour period? Here comes our next storm system. You'll notice a little piece of energy there. Not very high chances for that. So you're seeing snow in North Carolina, and you're thinking, all right, it's happening. Slow your horses. Again, I think flurries could make it over the mountains over the next 5 days or so, but not anything really worth noting. But here comes the next storm system. Middle of next week, that once again brings big time snow chances into the Great Lakes, but even further south into Appalachia, from Boone northbound into West Virginia, and then you'll notice snowfall chances kind of trying to get into the I-95 corridor. I think at least places like Connecticut and northern New Jersey would have a higher chance with that storm system. And then another big shot of cold air, and notice these snow chances hanging around and becoming a little more dispersed on the model, but they're there in that longer time period. And you wouldn't expect the models to have a super perfect signal at that range, but again, still something we'll watch. Here's the European, same story. Here comes that next big storm system, that clipper. It's going to bring a lot of snow again through the Great Lakes, maybe into portions of the Northeast outside of the Great Lakes and the higher terrains. We'll watch it. As we get closer, we'll know more. And then another piece of energy behind that, you'll notice about 10 days from now, the European trying to, again, show this southern slide or this southern piece of energy. And these are not very high chances for snow, folks. We're talking, 10% on the model here. But at that range, you just look for any kind of signal. You're not looking for a forecast. You're looking for a signal. And there is a signal between the operational run and maybe a couple of ensemble members that do hint at a bigger storm system. And then those snow chances maybe hang around through the middle of December. Now, this is the blend of models. This is total snowfall over the next 10 days from all of our models put together. And I wanted to show you this just to give you an idea of who is going to be most likely to see a lot of snow. Well, like we mentioned, into the Great Lakes, but even into the Northeast, noticing a relatively good signal, even into New Jersey, Pennsylvania, down into Maryland, portions of the Delmarva. even areas here of the mid-Atlantic through Virginia trying to show some sort of signal for snow over the next 10 days. And we'll watch it now. Somewhere we're not going to see snow and that we've seen a lot of it, the Rockies, pretty dry over the next 10 days, not necessarily going to be too cold for snow, although it will be warming up as that ridge flexes its muscles. But really just what's happening, again, is we're getting this big buckle in the jet stream, so all of our energy is flying into the east, and that's why we're going to see all of this snow. Final thing I'll show you, temperatures. Like I said, we're in the freezer right now. We are going to moderate a little bit. So we stay cold today, tomorrow, through early next week. But check this out. We get into next Wednesday and next Thursday. Things begin to get a little bit closer to average, but don't get too excited because, like I said, here's that next shot of cold air, the next kind of train car on the Siberian Express, as we call it. That dives down. That gets us well below average again. And then another big shot of cold air about 10 days from now. And kind of that middle of next week and into next week shot of cold air that we're looking at. Those look even colder than this one. So we'll need to definitely watch that. And we'll talk more about exact temperatures as we get closer. But right now, just kind of watching the pattern, watching the signals, seeing if something tries to get its act together here in the medium and long run. Alrighty, folks, y'all have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Enjoy it. Stay safe out there. And I'll see you all tomorrow.